Teaching others, because when I first got into the healthcare field, people overlooked me. I was really a ninth grade dropout who had no education, but I was determined to make something of myself for my baby. So Motor City matched the funds I put into my business. They awarded me $20,000. So now I'm able to focus solely on first step healthcare training and give it everything it needs. All because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, and yes, it is the Friday after the 3 days after that was Election Day. I have a feeling we can probably cover this whole hour talking about just the election. Again, if there's something else going on in the world, just let us know, and we'll table it. We are joined today by former Fox 2 news anchor and friend to Deadline Detroit and to The Week That Was, Huel Perkins. Yeah. We are joined with two out of our usual three attorneys, Joel Sklar and Steve Fishman, pollster Ed Sarpolus, who I am sure probably has the phone ringing nonstop right now. And now we are joined with our third of the Troika. That's actually number three that you should be showing us, Bill. You are the third to join of the attorneys, Bill Seikaly. We have labor and community activist Barb Ingalls, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and of course, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. So I thought we would just start with a question about who has a reflection on what transpired Tuesday night. We will keep this sort of stream of consciousness for a while.
I'm sure we all have.
Stunned.
Could I play a Jimmy Kimmel little
sure
thing here?
To be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
So basically, for any Martians and also for any of the Amish that, the TV signal isn't there, Donald Trump won the election, the popular as well as the electoral vote. Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, the battleground states, all went red in this election. The excuse that was made in 2016 that people didn't really know him, despite the Billy Bush interview and everything else, seems to have gone by the wayside, that now he was a known commodity, and yet he won fairly decisively, it seems. So with that role, and I see some heads nodding, Steve.
Well, my schmuck of the week last week was Joe Biden, and it's still my schmuck of the week. I think we were cursed from the beginning. I think it was too little too late. We didn't have an opportunity to have an open primary like we should have had if he would have announced 2 years ago that he was a one-term president. And perhaps we would have had somebody that wasn't as saddled by some of the things that have gone on in the Biden administration. But I don't know if it would have made a difference, in all honesty. I've read so much since, this whole business with inflation and the cost of things. And if that really was the driving factor, and if that caused people to ignore the character deficiencies that are too numerous to count, then I don't know if it would have made any difference. I'm interested in what everybody else has to say about that.
Okay. Bill.
Steve, I hope you're right and that I'm wrong in my analysis. Because I've always held out, as an immigrant, I've always held out great hope for this country and believe that we've always worked toward our aspirational goals stated in the Declaration of the Constitution. I don't see that anymore, to be honest with you. I think this country got what it asked for. You look, turnout was pretty good. It's hard to tell whether it's better or worse than last time, but looks like turnout was pretty good. And he won the popular vote, not just the Electoral College. He won all the swing states. I think that what we see is a ferocious nationalistic tendency and a racist tendency. I think that you guys managed to get, and I think that unfortunately we're going to see what this does to our country. The book, I feel like a stranger in my own land.
Yeah, it's a vote for fascism, is how I see it. I mean, there's no other way I can interpret it. And part of the tragedy is I don't see the Democrats running a female candidate for a bit. They're 0 for 2. I think that's going to have an impact on us. Maybe we're not ready to elect a female as president. There was a lot of talk coming out of the polls that she's not strong. That maybe we're
but
not.
The talk coming out of the polls, Joel, was simply reflecting exactly what Trump's been saying. People in this country. I mean, look, guys, let's take a step back. Who ever would have thought that we would have elected a convicted felon
Twice
as
impeached.
president of the United States?
Yeah.
Look, we all agree about Trump. I think Kimmel got it right. This was a terrible day for America. But I think we need to quit looking at Trump and start looking at this country. What is it about this country that elects a convicted felon, a guy who's been found responsible for sexual misconduct time after time, a guy who brags about it? It's on tape, and so what? We elect him president of the United States. I think it's time that we ask, what's going on in ourselves that creates that? We've abandoned this notion, all people created equally. We've abandoned the principles that this country was founded on. We voted to do a mass deportation. By the way, it won't be limited to people from the Latino community or something.
I agree.
These Arabs that support him are all going to get sucked into this.
Well, in that case, in Dearborn, Bill, it looks like, according to the returns, 45% voted for Trump, about 32%, I believe, for Kamala Harris, and about maybe 17% for Jill Stein. Jill Stein actually performed poorly this election than she did in 2020, where she had 0.5% of the vote. She got 0.4% of the vote. In fact, in Minnesota, she got 0.1% of the vote. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was still on the ballot yet not running, got 0.71%, outperformed her in Minnesota. But I think it's also important to remember that 30% of Dearborn voted for Trump in 2020, and Dearborn is only 55% Arab. So I think it would be interesting to tweeze it out a little bit more to see exactly whether Dearborn as a collective is known as an Arab community, but it actually isn't. It's just a slightly majority one, to see how that transpired. Allan, I think you had your hand up on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got this grifter. We've got a cult figure that he's a once in a lifetime politician in terms of the magnetism, the cultish following that he has. And it's just miraculous how he's been able to override anything ignorant, anything bigoted he says. People are just, people he hates. I mean, here it is, he's got the mayor of Hamtramck, jumping in with him. And, as soon as January 20th comes, immigration is going to be sweeping through Hamtramck and rounding up some people who maybe overstayed their visas or whatever, and cleaning out. And the mayor is not going to be so popular at that point. He's a naive guy. he is, look, he's a Democrat. He supported some of the, bigoted, racist, anti-Semitic remarks that have been made on social media, and he's gotten hell from people like Dana Nessel and stuff like that. So he's found comfort with the Republican Party, who embraces anything goes. You want to be a bigot? That's fine. It's just.
Yeah, Huel.
Here's the thing, and this is why I predicted this outcome. I hope I'd be wrong, but I wasn't.
Yep.
This is a reflection of who we are.
Mhm.
We are a racist, bigoted, xenophobic, sexist country. And that's the problem. So that somebody who reflects that, Trump gives us permission to say anything we want about anybody with no consequences.
Absolutely.
That's why he was elected. That's why he gets these crowds. He's saying things that are ridiculous to us, but it allows people who are inherently bigoted to say, yeah, he's right. They're eating the cats and dogs. It may not be true, but that's what they want to believe. And so that's a problem. That's a huge problem.
It gives them agency.
We've got a video.
Absolutely.
We've got a video that goes to this point.
I want to know how it is you voted for Donald Trump when you're so into facts, because his entire campaign is not based in facts. It was all based in propaganda and emotion.
I voted for Donald Trump for one reason only. His policies, if implemented, would slow the dispossession of whites in the United States. If you were to deport all illegal immigrants, if you were to think very hard about letting in any Muslims, all of this would slow the rate at which whites are becoming a minority.
So that's Jared Taylor, who's actually a well-known white supremacist, who seems to be enjoying his meal sitting with mixed company, no doubt.
Why that guy didn't stab him in the throat with his fork, I will never know.
But Allan, I think you have another video of you interviewing some people as to what was their impetus to vote for Trump.
And this was on election day over here in Midtown on Warren. Here's two Trump voters.
Was it the lesser of two evils, or was there one that excited you more than the other?
Yeah, it's one that excites me more than the other. Trust me.
Yeah. Hey, could I ask you who that would be?
I'm going for Trump. I'm just letting y'all know. I don't care.
And what?
It's just the lesser evil. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I can.
And what are you hoping for with Trump?
I'm hoping for better situations for the community. I mean, everything is being built up downtown, and instead of the real outside and the outskirts of the community, the violence. I want a lot of change.
Were there certain issues that were more important to you than others, or?
The issues with transgender, I didn't like those at all.
You didn't like that?
No, sir.
And so Kamala, the things with Kamala, did that impact you? Or
yes, it did.
Okay. And could I ask who you voted for? Or? Trump. And well, let me ask you, when you say that, Trump, do you feel like some people will be judgmental?
Most definitely.
Most definitely. Did you get some grief about?
Yes, I did.
You did. Yeah. And what did you tell people? What was?
Mind your business.
Look at the ingratitude of these people. That first guy. I mean, didn't we build a queue line? And isn't parking $55 a night at the temple parking structure? I mean, what the hell more do they want? Anyway, I'm done with my grievances there. But this idea that was reflected in your interview, Allan. Somebody called me up from Australia, and they said that they saw this video of an African American gentleman being interviewed in Philadelphia, and he said he's voting for Trump because he feels as though, as Trump is a convicted felon, that now Trump is going to then be getting convicted felons hired by corporations where that has been a barrier before. That was the hope and the at least the promise that they heard Trump making either implicitly or explicitly. So this is where we are.
Yeah, can you imagine if somebody called up like McDonald's and said, "Hey, I got this buddy, he needs a job," and they said, "Well, tell me a little bit about him." Well, he was essentially convicted in civil court of rape. He's had some charities that were and stuff that were closed down. He tried to overthrow an election, and he's a serial liar. And it'd be like, yeah, you got anybody else?
Yeah.
I don't trust that guy to make French fries.
Yeah. You know, I think Huel is absolutely correct, though. I mean, we have defined who we are, and it's my naivety that thought we were better, that our better angels would show themselves, especially in this election where it was so clear. I think the choices, even if Kamala had a short runway, you know, Biden did whatever he did. This is who we are. Trump got elected by a landslide. He does have a mandate to do everything he said he was going to do. If the election were opposite and we had the mandate, we'd be saying the same thing. And that terrifies me. So I don't know there are no more guardrails as I see it. We are a racist, malevolent nation. We are corroding from within. And I don't think we're even close to bottom. Bottom's a long way away, but we're gonna walk down that path.
So Joel, let me comment on one of the comments that I just came across from one of our listeners and viewers. So we have racism on the one hand, but it seems as though some of the grievances is that we are also seen as a very class-based society, and that a statement being made that sounds like a Waffle House employee is a criticism that Trump voters make, that Democrats are out of touch, that they're elitists, that they don't understand common folk. Yeah. Who are working at a Waffle House, for example, and have dignity, and that they have, certain values that may not be racist, right. But they're just trying to make it.
I got it. But Trump, first of all, we're educated. I guess we are elitist, if that's how you define it. If you've gone to college or you've gone beyond college, I suppose that's what we are. But I just don't think Trump's going to do much for people who are in labor. The NLRB is going to be completely, castrated. The right to bargain is going to be eliminated. Anything that is going to help the worker at Waffle House, at McDonald's, at Panera, I just got a scone, is not going to be helped at all by Donald Trump. It's going to be pro-management. The market's going to rock for at least 2 years, is my guess. And then when things fall apart, God only knows where the fuck they go.
Nancy.
Is it talking down to these the common folk, the common clay, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to get to
Nancy, I believe that's Cassius Clay.
No, I'm trying not to get to the Blazing Saddles line where he says, morons. But I don't think these people are morons. I understand there is dignity in every job. I respect every person who does a shitty job. I have done many of them in my life, and I'm there with you. That's one reason I did go to college. But is it talking down to somebody to say, you know what? Water fluoridation has been responsible for the fact that you are likely to die with all of your teeth still in your head. Okay. Vaccines work. They're the reason that 1 in 5 children don't die as they did, before they reach adulthood, as they did in my parents' or my grandparents' generation. Is that talking down to people? Because that's kind of, that's where I find myself. Do you want me to whisper bullshit in your ear, or do you want to actually hear facts? And what I'm hearing from people, please, more bullshit. And, this is who we are. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he said, people always talk about, do you love your country? He's like, I don't love my country. And I just live here. He said, I love my family. I love my friends. But this is just where I'm from, and I love things about it, but I don't love the country because the country is just the people in it. And we have just learned that a majority of the voters in it want this. So if that's the case, I'm not falling in love with that shit.
Steve.
I read an interesting column yesterday after everything was done. And I think sometimes those of us who don't sit around watching Fox News, which, by the way, includes an awful lot of Democrats that do, at least according to this columnist. Mm-hmm. When we talk about, they know this and they know that, you got to remember, if all you do is watch Fox News and hit the websites of whatever the websites are, the things we accept as facts, people just don't accept as facts. Right. Yeah. They don't even have heard those things. So I don't know that you're necessarily talking about people ignoring facts. They're ignoring them to the extent that they don't go along with it, but they don't ever hear anything like that. I really, Roger Ailes, Huel certainly knows this, having been in that business.
Yep.
Roger Ailes was a malevolent genius. He'd have been able to play some kind of a Batman genius in a show.
Yep.
He recognized the ability to communicate directly to tons and tons of people. And as this columnist said, a lot of them are Democrats. A lot of them are middle of the road. They happen to watch. If we don't go on there like Buttigieg did, if we ignore them, and it appears that she pretty much ignored them other than that one interview with Bret Baier. But if you don't keep in touch with those people, how are they going to know? How are they going to accept what we say as facts? And that to me is something that's very significant.
Barb.
When you have hammered in every part of your media, you listen to sports media, you listen to podcasts, you listen to Joe Rogan, you listen to Fox News.
And she didn't go on Joe Rogan. I mean, her campaign apparently had preconditions. Yeah,
it might have helped. I mean, and I think that because of the way it happened, she couldn't do it. But it might have happened. But they have heard over and over and over and over and over again about all these things, about how even though the economy is tremendously better than it was in many ways, they think that they're paying too much for everything. They think they're paying too much for gas, even though the prices of gas is down. They think that every single bathroom in the United States of America has a trans person in it. They think that trans people are going to take over all of the sports. They think that white women won't have babies anymore, and then that's the problem. And by the way, we're really awfully uppity, aren't we? And want to do things like run the country. I mean, I guess we were naive to think that this country would ever elect a woman, let alone a Black woman. And I think I've talked to people that just depress me so badly by how much they really hate the America that we wanted. They hate it. They don't want it.
I want to ask Ed about the polls. What was your, a lot of people again are saying, oh, the pollsters were off and they underestimated Trump's support. What's your read on all that?
Well, I think the polls were not being honest. Okay, we remember we're all relaying our anger at Donald Trump and who he is, but the polls that I did in 16 and in 20 predicted this was going to happen, because the fact that this loss to Trump was by small margins in these key states. Okay, I mean, we only lost by 83,000 votes against Trump in Michigan, and the reason being is that we ignore the people that we should be talking to. 77,000 Democrats, mostly Black and Hispanic, stayed home. Okay, the Republicans increased their turnout by 172,000 voters in the last 30 years in one election, mostly men. Mostly the people that stayed home were men, okay, that didn't vote, okay? And this is what I showed in 20, why I recommended to the Black Caucus, don't support Kamala Harris for president. That's why they went with Biden from Michigan in 2020. Kamala Harris had no message for the male voter. Matter of fact, if you look at the last 2 weeks of the campaign, there was no pro-men messaging through the whole campaign about jobs or economy. None. Okay. I mean, I've called Illinois, I called all the states. They're all seeing the same thing. All those of us who look for solutions, there was no message to the male voter. Chicago had trouble getting Democrats. And it was all basically in the Black or the male or Hispanic community.
So this wasn't just about the White House, Ed. I mean, this was about.
You can argue with me, but the data shows my margins.
I agree with you, but I mean, what it shows this time is that there will be no checks and balances come January, because the House, the Senate, I mean, as things look, I mean, I know there's a few things contested in the House, and the Supreme Court are all in really, I mean, the hands, even though they say the Supreme Court is nonpartisan, but we are alive and we are educated. But
I will tell you this: in Detroit, in Chicago, Trump had more people and more signs than Democrats. Okay, I walked with Dearborn. I've gone to Mississippi. I've gone to Grand Rapids. I've been to Chicago. Trump had all over the places. Why do you think he did so well in New York? I'm not saying everything you're saying is true, but the people that switched their vote don't listen to the news, don't watch the news, don't have access to the news. They're trying to figure out where their job is. Okay, they're frustrated with their economy or their jobs, and so they did not vote or they skipped Harris and they voted for Lisa Slotkin. Most of the areas Harris lost, Slotkin won in Michigan.
Luckily,
okay? And so what I'm saying is we lost by a small margin. We only lost by $83. It's Lisa Slotkin in Michigan. This is the first time that the presidential candidate did not boost the people underneath her. Lisa Slotkin won it independent of Harris. Her message was less about that. I'm not saying what you're saying. Everything you're saying is true, but the people that you needed to vote, they didn't get a message from Harris on that, which we saw that in 2016. We saw that in 2020. That's why I'm saying a lot of this was building up to that.
By the way, bless up, Kev. You said that we all voted for Trump. We didn't. I voted for Emmanuel Macron, and I'm sticking by that. So, Allan.
I want to say something in defense of the media. I mean, it's funny. People, Trump has tried to diss the media, tried to minimize the media. I think particularly it's not likely the Democrats are going to take the House. The only guardrail, or one of them, is going to be the media. And the fact that, people say, oh, the media is irrelevant. Look, people ignore Trump got elected again. Well, that's not the media's fault that people are ignoring the facts. I mean, I think like the New York Times, like Peter Baker did a great job of saying, this guy is insane. This guy is demented. This guy is, and people ignore that. Well, we can only put things before, but I think the media's role again is going to be more important as ever. And if we want to have a democracy here.
And here's, you sound. I don't want to insult you here, but this is you as the Seinfeld. This is you as the Seinfeld fan. Okay, the media is important. Yes, it's important, but not if nobody pays any attention to it. Exactly. My New York Times subscription costs about $75 a month. That is a luxury.
Why Washington so much. I pay $4.
Hey, Nancy, I'll show you how to get free cable.
It's like, I mean, if nobody, we talk about the New York Times, oh, Peter Baker. It's like, who the fuck is Peter Baker to, 999 of the next 1,000 people that pass you on the street.
Trump has repeatedly hammered the fake news back there. You could shoot them. I could give a shit.
Right.
Look, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can only put out the information.
I know.
I'll talk to people and they'll say, well, where did you read that? I'll say New York Times. They'll go, New York Times. Yeah.
But they don't read it. They think of themselves as very well informed, but they're watching Newsmax. They're watching Fox Nation, which is like Fox News's crazier aunt who they keep locked up behind the paywall. They're watching the Right Side Broadcasting Network. I mean, all of these things, they don't. The New York Times,
right? They think it's
New York Times. New York Post they're reading, not the New York Times.
Yeah, or the New York Post, right? Exactly.
But wait a minute, we're getting, in my opinion, we're getting away from the issue that really needs to be addressed. You can point out the facts. I don't think it took the media to point out that Trump is a racist, bigoted, lunatic, homophobic, xenophobic asshole. I mean, anybody with ears can figure that out. They don't care.
Exactly.
They don't care.
Exactly.
They're drawn to it. It's more than that.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They've already made up their minds.
In terms of the election, look, I have to tell you this. I guess I would feel better if Kamala would have gotten elected. But if this many people can vote for Trump, it says something about this country that if we don't examine, we're in deep shit. We can't talk about the margins. We can't, it's because she was a woman. We shouldn't have made the mistake of nominating a woman, or we shouldn't have nominated a black. We wouldn't have had Trump if we wouldn't have elected Obama. What kind of country is that?
Yeah,
for God's sake.
Bill, I have to support you on that. Okay, I've done mayor races in St. Louis and other major cities in the United States. And in St. Louis, I worked in a mayor's races years back. The mayor ended up going to jail 2 days after getting elected. Some people just vote, I don't care, I don't like the other two, and that's what happened. I agree with you on that. Basically, there is a don't care, okay? And it's not.
But I'm going, and I hear you. And I have a great deal of respect to you. By the way, the guy who called you Carl's pollster doesn't know what they're talking about. But I think that it's more than I don't care. I think that when you get a guy as aggressive as Trump and as mean as Trump, the people who voted for him weren't voting as a protest. You could make that argument in 2016. You could make that argument in 2016. They didn't like Hillary. Nobody thought that he'd get elected, so they just did a protest vote. Okay, I didn't like that argument in 2016, but I could understand it. Here, look, this guy's been around for a long time. Everybody knows what this son of a bitch is about. And we elected him.
I have a question for you all. Sure. What's your read on the media's role in all of this? And is the media failing, or are people just ignoring the media?
We live in silos, and most people want to hear news interpreted or presented in a way that justifies what they already believe. And that is what has happened to this country. Rupert Murdoch and the evil genius of Roger Ailes, Steve, you're right, created this behemoth that gives people justification for the hate they feel. Right. And when things are not going well and Fox News can present a target or give them a target, yeah, that's right. It's all those immigrants. That's why prices are high. Right. It may have nothing to do with it, nothing to do with the truth, but it justifies what they believe. Yeah. Now, I know several people, including many Jewish people, very wealthy, by the way, who said this: I can't stand him. I can't stand him. I hate it, but I'm going to vote for him. They didn't put up a sign, but they voted for him in that booth because they believed that somehow, some way, it would be better for their businesses. I have black friends who did the same thing. You talk to some of them who said, look, I don't like him either. I think he's a racist too, but I he will help me get ahead in life.
And some of those things, Huel, were like single issue. I know that in the Pakistani American community, there were lobbyists who said, we're endorsing Trump because he told them that he's going to get former Prime Minister Imran Khan out of prison in Pakistan. We're
throwing out promises like fucking chicklets at the end.
Yeah, well, but we saw that with Jan Brady in season 4 of the Brady Bunch, Nancy. But I think the stakes are a bit higher here. Joel, and then we'll go to a commercial.
I just have one. I think what's the reality is that the ethos of the nation has been altered. This is our new nation. This is going to be ingrained in us, that we are going to be no longer benevolent, no longer accepting, no longer tolerant, no longer open. Freedom has a different definition than the one that I believe that it had. And the ethos of this nation is malevolent. It's like a cancer that has spread, and Trump is metastasizing it. And I don't know how we excise it. I don't know if we'll ever excise it. The decline in democracy is here. And you can't deny that that's the case. And the ethos of the nation is such where democracy may not matter as much as my own personal need. There's no vision down the road. So I think our ethos has changed, and I don't think we're going to go back to what the former ethos was anytime soon, if ever.
We're selling the Statue of Liberty to Jeff Bezos, and we're taking that sonnet off the bottom of it and throwing it in the...
No, keep your people. Get them away from us.
And we've got the oligarchs.
We don't like your drags. No drags.
Well, but if you have money, you can come. I mean, if you have money, if you have no money, no, stay away. But if you have money,
that's like an oligarchy.
But isn't that the fulfillment of Emma Lazarus? Aren't we now that wretched refuse?
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a woman tell me online, if immigrants were so great, let them go back to their own countries and fix them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ooh,
okay.
Now there's a thought.
Yeah.
Alan, why don't we go to commercial on that one?
I want to, before we go to commercial, I want to just give you an idea of what people who enjoy the more conservative shows, what they like.
If you're one of the tens of millions of Americans who voted for someone other than Donald Trump on Tuesday, just know two things. You're not alone, and also your sadness is making some people very happy.
The liberal tears, they were flowing yesterday.
Liberal tears were pouring at Kamala Harris's very short-lived watch party.
I take my karma piping hot with a side of liberal tears. I'm so here for this.
All right.
OC Alice, you wonderful drug you.
Yeah.
I love teaching others because when I first got into the healthcare field, people overlooked me. I was really a ninth grade dropout who had no education, but I was determined to make something of myself for my baby. So Motor City matched the funds I put into my business. They awarded me $20,000. So now I'm able to focus solely on first step healthcare training and give it everything it needs. All because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
So quite obviously, the presidential election was not the only office that was in play on Tuesday. There were several others here in the state of Michigan and even more locally. Were any of those of particular interest to you? I think somebody mentioned the fact that Alyssa Slotkin squeezed out a victory over Mike Rogers. But how about some of the others? Any surprises? Any shocks?
Oh, the surprises is the two Supreme Court justices won. That the Democrats were pushing, and they won early in the evening, despite all the other stuff. They came through in flying colors. That was probably the surprise to everybody, because the fact they won despite all the other jargon. They won. That was the big surprise. Nobody expected that. But we lost school board races, but we did not lose the Supreme Court.
All right, Steve.
No, that's funny because I thought for sure they would both win. Yeah. I think the fact that she was an incumbent, and I don't watch much TV, but I saw enough ads during the ball games where they were doing it together. It looked like I wasn't the least bit surprised, but I don't do any polling, obviously. It was just looking at it in the totality of it. The other two guys were nobodies. I never even heard of them.
I agree with you. What I'm saying is, but the normal, when you see all the other races going the other way, it uses Supreme Court races who typically are not, don't have that kind of bang. They did very well. That's what I'm saying is that I agree with you. They had the better ads, but it was a surprise to a lot of the people on the ground.
Barb.
A lot of people were splitting their ballots and not voting straight, and it was the job of counting the absentee ballots. We went really fast, but try to slow it down and look at them. And a lot of people were splitting the ballots and not voting for Kamala Harris. Voting down ballot. I just saw results for the Oakland County. So I swore an oath to not talk about it till they release those numbers. But we can. And like Birmingham went just barely blue. And they were very blue the last time. It's real interesting to see it, but it's the split ballot that I think made a big difference.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, Barb, because the most fascinating thing to me, I was watching MSNBC on election night, and Kornacki, to me, is just unbelievable in terms of explaining what's going on and comparing what's going on here as to what went on in 20. But the most amazing thing to me was we all thought, I think most liberals thought, most Democrats thought that the abortion issue would carry candidates through in these various places. And look at Florida. The abortion amendment was 57 to 43. It passed, and Trump won Florida's like 60 to 40, which means all those people split their ballots, and it happened all across the country. Missouri, the amendment passed. I think another red state, the amendment passed, and it's astounding to me that maybe a bunch of us were kind of getting carried away with that particular issue, probably because it's so important to us. But we actually thought that would mean it would carry her, and it sure as hell didn't when you looked at the results across the country.
Maybe I got this wrong, but I thought Florida, the measure failed in Florida.
It did. Only
They
because
had to
they
have
didn't get
60%.
It was a
60. They had to get 60, but it was
That's right.
57 to 43 in
Yeah.
favor of the amendment,
Got it.
and
But
and almost exactly the opposite for the presidential election. Nance, what
Right.
were you saying?
I was just going to say what he said, that it had to be 60.
Yeah.
And so they have 57% won it, but because they couldn't get to 60, it failed. So they're back in the 6-week abortion.
There was one other thing that Kornacki talked about, and this figure to me was unbelievable. 90% of the counties in the country, 90%. Trump got more votes this year than he got in 2020. And obviously, when you looked at New Jersey, she won it by 5 points. Biden won it by 15. New York,
Yeah.
she won it by like 15 points less. The whole thing is astounding.
I know. I wonder if Biden could have won. I doubt it.
Come on,
but-
come on. Nance, are you
I don't
kidding?
know. I mean, who knows? But no, I think you're right. I don't think he could have won. But it is
Won.
kind of weird to see that in those numbers. It's just
Sure.
crazy.
So he'll-
in Grosse Pointe, can I just say in Grosse Pointe, which was a nonpartisan school board race, but we had early
I saw
on
that.
the sides were very clear. There was a liberal slate and there was a conservative slate, and the conservative slate tracked almost their yard signs tracked almost 100% with Trump signs. The liberals, likewise with Harris, and the liberals won. I mean, they blew those penny pinching farms people right out of the water, and so that tells you something. I don't know. I mean, that it feels like the points in general went for Harris narrowly, but at the same time that says something. So,
Well, Huel, let me ask you this: what do you see in this Trump administration? Is it going to be nothing but chaos and pushback? And
that's something I want to say something about.
No. Look, he has the Senate. He has the Supreme Court. He will likely have the House. And this time he's had practice. He's had the first run through.
Yeah.
2016. Now he knows exactly what he wants to do.
Yep.
And I woke up last night kind of afraid for people in Washington. He has promised to abolish the education department.
Yep.
He is going to fire as many people in the Justice Department as he can. He's going to ransack the FBI. And he's going to give people who don't deserve it authority in our government. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
That's me. I mean, I have been numb and depressed and not talking very much, which is very unusual for me, since about midnight on Tuesday night. And I finally started to think maybe we'll get through this, and then it was like, are you fucking crazy? This isn't like having voted for John Kerry and George Bush wins. I mean, when that happened, you knew you were unhappy, but you knew that the country was basically going to be the same in 4 years when we put up another candidate for president. This is different. We have elected a king, okay, and not a
tyrant,
wise king, not a King Solomon who's full of generosity and sees down the road and wants the best for his people. We have elected a lunatic who has never been for anybody other than himself. He lies with every breath. He's, blah, blah. We've been through this months.
And every
for months and
relationship is transactional.
And when you consider what he's going to do to the federal, government, i.e. the deep state, the swamp, you have to be asking yourself, who's going to be inspecting meat in the next year? Who is going to be paying attention to the country's nuclear power plants? Who is going to be overseeing our water supply?
I think that's part of his housing policy. He's going to kill off a bunch of people.
Imagine a federal, like if they do away with the Department of Education, I fully expect it to be followed by a nationwide voucher system, okay, which will hollow out. And I was thinking in 20 years, there will still be a public school system, but it will be for poor kids in places like Detroit and, and the rural areas and so forth. The rich kids, of course, will glide above the chaos on their parents' money, and they will go to private schools like Cranbrook and Liggett and, even the good religious private schools. The rest the vast majority will be kind of sucked into these like shitty charters, or voucher academies, essentially, that will teach that God has chosen America alone among nations to give special blessings to, and women are raised to be helpmeets of men.
And that slavery was good.
Yeah, right. And you don't have to.
It gave us
And you
new
don't
skills.
exactly. I mean, you don't even have to. And you don't have to know all this calculus. It's like you're going to be an electrician, and that'll be fine. So I mean, it's going to be. And when you decimate the American public school system, which has always been pretty good, you end up decimating the workforce. I mean, there are going to be factory owners who are going to say, is there anyone out there who knows what a micron is and can readjust this machine to allow for more microns? I mean, it could potentially be far worse than anything we ever dreamed of.
Yeah.
And then
well,
I'll stop.
I don't expect the American the American voter to. You okay there, Joel?
Oh yeah.
We have a lot of movement going on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't expect the American voter to necessarily care how we're perceived in the rest of the world, but the rest of the world does care about how the United States is, and there's been a lot of interest in the election. And I always find it interesting to see who were the first world leaders to call and congratulate Trump. I think it was Netanyahu from Israel and Orban from Hungary. So there's a couple of upstanding.
We're
guys.
gonna do so much criming, BB. It's gonna wait until Jared opens his resort in the on the Gaza.
In Gaza.
Yeah, it's gonna be so great.
Huel, you've got I imagine some more discretionary time now that you're not behind the anchor's desk and get to travel around and hopefully travel the world. How do you see America being viewed in your travels, or how do you think it will be viewed? What's going to be its footprint?
I think it will change dramatically, but I think people are waiting to see exactly what Trump will do. He has promised to end the war in Ukraine very quickly, 24 hours. I doubt it'll be that, but I think that you will see a deal being made with Putin. I expect them at some time to talk. I expect Zelensky to be on the, and I expect Trump to somehow force a resolution of the war in Ukraine. I expect that to be along the lines that Russia will keep all the territory it now holds. There will be some demilitarized zone in the middle. I expect Trump also to find ways where he and his family can make money somehow, somewhere. And I think that will be his greatest motivation. Jared Kushner, how much did he get from the Saudis? $2 billion?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He's going to want
do
to
whatever he wanted to do. Somehow, some way, that money is going to be used. I don't know how, but I expect no matter what happens, the Trump family will walk away with billions. But I'm also worried about Elon Musk, because I think he was a pivotal player in this whole thing, and that Trump is ceding power to Elon too, who has admitted that he wants to see the economy crash.
Yeah,
Right.
He wants to see the economy devastated so it can be rebuilt, probably in his image. So that, and I don't know if this is the goal, but so that people out of work, poor, will beg for jobs at lower wages.
Correct.
I hope that's
think-
not what's happening, but I'm afraid that is what could happen.
I think the oligarchs are taking, I mean, clearly they can be only called oligarchs here, like they were in Russia. I mean, Jeff Bezos killing right at the last minute when the Washington Post had already prepared to endorse. The LA Times, another billionaire who killed an endorsement. Elon Musk, who, Trump's railing about EVs, and yet Elon Musk's company is an EV company. So what the hell is going on? Except the rich people have really gotten their claws in on democracy and all the, the basic.
Where did the money come? How did the oligarchs get rich? By walking into the chaos of the collapse of the Soviet Union and essentially saying, mine. I mean, one guy took over the steel industry. One guy rolled into Gazprom, and took over natural gas. It's like these were guys who just had essentially a criminal's heart and a criminal's intention,
But
and,
Nancy,
and a
they
very
all have
nice.
to,
We
they
didn't,
all
we
have
didn't,
to
we
pay
didn't need
kickback
that,
to the
Nancy.
Godfather, Putin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
right,
but
exactly.
there's
As
nothing
long as they
different.
kicked
So,
upstairs
exactly.
to Vladdy P, then everything was going to be fine.
Well,
And
but
it's
Huel,
like,
yeah, but Huel and Nancy, I don't think we needed that here because we had Citizens United,
right.
and
Transparency.
And the fairness and
But
the
this is what I'm
fairness
talking
law.
about when I talk about like putting taxpayer money into private school vouchers. There's going to be billions made on charter schools. If there's already been quite a lot of money made on those suckers. But somebody's going to come up with like a plug and play charter school for conservative Christians who don't want their kids to learn about slavery, and they're going to get rich off of this shit.
And let me just point too. I don't know if Elon gave them Trump 75 or 200 million, whatever it is, but he got paid back immediately the day after in the stock market. He made 15 billion in one day.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that money makes its own money. That just is money recycled. There's.
Oh, are you going to go Liza Minnelli on us and sing "Money Makes the World Go Round"? Barb? Because it's a cabaret for sure.
I'll do the hands in the background.
Bill.
Two things. One, I've gotten a lot of sympathy calls since the election. My first one was from dear friends in England who said, "We're really sorry this happened to you, and we know how sad you must be, but we're just as worried as you are." And these are fairly successful business people in England. They're terrified about what's going to happen in Europe because of Trump's election. I think it speaks to another issue that we haven't touched upon, and that's this. What's happened to the political spectrum in America? People used to talk about the fact that people used to complain, oh, you can't tell the difference between Republicans and Democrats. Well, Nancy made allusions to that. The fact of the matter is that there was truth to that because we shared some core political values. We believed about the process about how you get legislation passed. We believed in compromise. If you look at, there was one of the guys who's up, I can't remember his name, one of the attorneys who's up for attorney general said, screw this compromise. If I could drag these people through the streets and string them up,
yes,
at least figuratively, to be fair to him, at least figuratively, we would do that. We don't need to compromise anymore. And I think that that's what's going to happen. The political spectrum has moved. Some people call it fascism, whatever you want to call it, has moved so far to the right that I think that we have to ask ourselves, is this time for kind of a new political alignment?
Well, and this is happening globally, Bill. I mean, this is what happened in India, the world's largest democracy, with a whole class of plutocrats, with a guy who used to sell tea in the market as the figurehead. So, I mean, this I think is then calling into question the viability of democracy, whether it's liberal or illiberal in the world. Alan.
I was going to say, I mean, Trump has successfully, like no other person has, at least in this country, has degraded the value of the currency of truth. I mean, he has so gotten to the point where if you say Trump's a serial liar, they say, I don't care. What about Hillary? What about this and that?
Oh, and Hunter Biden had his dick out and took a picture of it.
But Alan, I would say
fascism. I grew up. My parents are Holocaust survivors. I grew up my whole fucking life wondering how was it that Hitler rose to where he rose to. What was it that he did? Well, he targeted the Jews. They targeted the transgender. It just told lie after lie after lie, and people believed it. And the same thing's happening here. People say, don't compare Trump to Hitler. Okay, World War II Hitler, no. Pre-World War II, he's in the same playbook.
Yeah, but Alan, just on that metaphor, I would say, and this goes back to what Huel, who he had mentioned. I think in this case, it seems as though what Murdoch and what Ailes did, it was a couple of Goebbels looking for a Hitler, Mm-hmm. And that's where we've come. I don't think that it was Trump who began the defilement of, as you really nicely put it, the currency of truth. That was already there. He just sort of sidled into the role. So with that, I think we can go to our last segment.
All right. Let me, I did want to, I wanted to play this 3-second clip for Nancy.
Who ate all the gabagool? No more gabagool for you. The doctor said.
Okay.
So there you go.
Here we go.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the week.
Okay, let's get this ball rolling. Ed.
I have to say that we have to basically, we are our own schmucks because we listen to everything that we see and believe it.
I don't ever think we've had a self-loathing schmuck of the week, but and let alone implicating all of us. But I guess we can't even say that this election was a first, but that's a first.
I just thought it's like all the voters out there was like, like we did it to ourselves.
Okay, Bill.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little differently than Ed did. Not that I don't feel the same way at the moment, but I'm going to go for Trump and everybody who voted for him. I think that I do feel like a stranger in my own land, and I also feel like it's clear I am the enemy within. I think I know what my role has to be given these times, but I think that I think history will look badly upon Trump and his supporters. And it makes me sad to say that. I didn't like it when Hillary said these are a basket of deplorables, but I think
she was right.
I just said I think she was right.
We should get little buttons. Hillary was right.
Yeah, you're when in 72 when Nixon had that landslide for a year, I wore a button all the time. Said, "Don't blame me. I'm from Massachusetts."
Hey, Alan, do we have a picture from that era by any chance?
Oh, do we have? Let's. Yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
All you needed was a little wax on your unibrow. You would have been just devastating. So there
Bill,
you are.
Context is everything. So thank you for that. Huel.
I don't really have a schmuck of the week so much as a fear of the week, and that is the unholy alliance that Elon Musk has with Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Elon Musk is my schmuck of the week because I believe that he played an essential role in promoting Trump and getting him reelected. But by the same token, though, guys, I don't fear so much what's going to happen. It will be terrible, but I think there's hope. I talked about my friends who are voting for Trump, even though they don't like him. I attended a wedding. My son was the best man at this wedding, and this family, they're all Trumpers to the core, but they're also nice people. And we avoided direct talks about politics, but I believe to their core that they are good people and that they will not allow things to go too far. So it's my hope, and I believe we should have hope despite this, that there will be guardrails not in place by anybody in government, but by the people of this country at some point. They won't allow, what can I say? They won't allow camps, internment camps. They won't allow things to get as far as they got in Germany, is what I believe. So
the stock market disagrees with you, Huel.
Except Huel, we did have them against the Japanese, and Korematsu versus the United States is still actually valid law.
And so I have to ask this question because, I remember when I was a kid studying about World War II and what happened in Germany. And I remember a big question a lot of kids in my class asked is, were Germans just bad people to allow this to happen? And And I remember one of our teachers saying, you know, I think you need to study social psychology. No, but people get caught up in this and fail to stand up. I hope you're right, Huel. I really do, but I don't see it. I don't see people standing up and providing the guardrails that we're talking about.
When I went to private camps in Germany, and I looked at the fences and I saw the neighborhoods next door, and I asked my German friends, how could people living next door not know what was going on? They ignored it. That won't happen in America. I may be naive.
I hope. I hope. But Huel, by the way, I'm sure that this is unrelated to who you named a Schmuck of the Week, but we're no longer on X with this show, so I don't know. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Actually, I think we are.
We are on X.
Yeah. We're still on. Okay. Barb.
You know, there's a meme going around that somebody asked a social scientist if there was a word for Germans who just lived in Germany in those days and weren't active. And he said the word is Nazi, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what thread you pulled. You were a part of it. You were implicit. My Schmuck, and I am terrified. I'm glad you have hope. I'm terrified. I'm a woman. I have nieces, and I am terrified for women in this world that's coming up. And I would like to thank the Heritage Foundation for Project 2025. If you haven't really dealt into it, and they're now admitting that that is going to be a part of the government. And they've got all sorts of good stuff for workers and for unions and for OBGYNs and for women's health. And so they're my schmucks. And I'm just, I want to look at these kids and apologize, but I'm also going to, I'm going to pull them up. And I'm gonna fight.
Yeah.
What we can do.
And that's why we will win.
Steve.
Well, I said it in my first comment today, and I'm sticking with it. Jill and Joe Biden are my schmucks of the year, of the week, of whatever it is, for him doing what he did and hanging around for so long. I think had we had the opportunity to have a real primary, I doubt very much Kamala would have been the nominee. I don't know who would have been, but whoever it would have been more well known to the public and not as easily portrayed as they did it in their ads against her about she's a transgender hero or blah blah blah. So I blame the two of them. I know I'm making them schmuck of the week. With respect to what Huel said, Huel, you got to remember, I'm glad you're optimistic. There were a lot of German Jews who stayed in Germany that had the same optimism, and they wound up in Auschwitz. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think Barb's closer to correct. I think on that. And we'll see.
All right. Joel.
Mine is going to be the toxic masculinity represented by Joe Rogan, Trump, Musk, and their ilk. I think that is an incredibly dangerous philosophy to have. But I want to make a comment. One, that if there's hatred, there will be no compromise. And Kipling wrote a poem, "If," where he says, "Don't give way to hate." Maybe I hope I'm remembering that correctly, and I think that's true. We have to look at the Trump supporters not with disrespect or any anger or hatred. Then we're not capable of compromise. We have to recognize what's going on, continue to believe in what we believe in, even if reality tells us that we're wrong, because it's worth believing, and we have to continue to walk together. What will happen? That's right. I mean, that's patriotism.
I'm playing the piccolo that always played underneath Oliver Douglas's speeches on Green Acres.
Oh, I like that.
About that.
Yeah. But truly, you know, I mean, I was the same as all of you. I'm shocked, sad, dismayed, can't believe it. I'm naive. I'm a schmuck because I believe that our better angels will always prevail. That's clearly not the case.
Yeah.
You know, and I just think for Democrats who are so hurt, don't give way to hatred. Be angry, be upset, but don't give way to hatred. Otherwise, you're as lost as the Trump people are, and we can't have that.
All right. Bravo. Nancy.
Well, I determined to pick one that didn't have anything to do with the election. And I don't even know if this happened this week. I think it was actually last week, but it kind of ties in with Joel's comments about toxic masculinity. And I'm going to pick the kid who stuck his camera in, or his phone camera in Jason Kelsey's face at the Penn State Stadium and called him a gay slur. He called him, I was going to say, he called him a faggot. Okay. And Kelsey grabbed the phone out of his hand, which obviously shocked the pants off of him, and then threw it to the ground. And then he looked at him and he said, "Who's the faggot now?" Okay. And of course, who's the bad person in all of this? Jason Kelsey, because he reacted to violence. And I was thinking to myself, this is something Steve probably knows a lot about because he's a pretty tough guy and he grew up in a tough neighborhood, as he reminds us from time to time. And there's a generation
right off of 8 Mile.
Right off of 8 Mile. There's a generation, maybe 2 generations of young men who have learned to interact with each other completely online. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's really easy to call somebody, a faggot at your keys when you're behind a fake name and everything else. If more kids did that, if more young, stupid men insulted NFL players to their face and got a punch in the mouth over it, I think we'd have a more civil society. Not that I'm advocating violence, but I think that anybody who thinks Jason Kelsey did the wrong thing there is not my friend. So go for Joe. Good job, Jason. Schmuck of the week is that little weasel that taunted you.
I think I might have told you guys when Trump and Bill Barr were getting started and they were saying that they were big bullies in high school. One of my college teammates who went to Northeastern High School, which was the Brewster Projects, he called me on the phone and said, "Did you see that stuff about those guys were bullies?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "How do you think they'd have done at Mumford or Northeastern trying to bully us?"
Alan.
I've got a few. I'll try to do them real quick. One is Lindsey Graham, who immediately said, "Okay, Jack Smith, drop your nonsense," and stuff like that. I find that heartbreaking. All the justice that was put together to create those cases that are, totally legitimate. And this criminal has figured out a way how to derail that. And speaking of another criminal is Netanyahu, who's trying to do the same thing. He's been trying to do it since the beginning, trying to get the Supreme Court weakened so he can get all his charges dismissed. And also he fired his defense minister, Gallant, who made statements just the other day and said, "We had accomplished what we needed to accomplish in the Gaza back in July. It was ripe for negotiations to bring peace, and Netanyahu fucked it up." And the other thing is the pro-Palestinian people who went after the soccer fans in Amsterdam. I found that heartbreaking. And I talk about Kristallnacht and all that, and having my parents who are Holocaust survivors. I mean, I found that heartbreaking. I mean,
to provide
people say
to that.
It's not in a vacuum that it happens, that there's anger there, and I get that. But these are people, if they grabbed you and I off the street and just started beating on us because of policies overseas. So anyways,
you're right, Al. I mean, it was egregious. That was actually going to be one of my schmucks. It didn't help that the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were marching through the streets of Amsterdam chanting "Fuck the Arabs."
Right.
So
yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's the story with.
I did not hear that. But
yeah, that's
they
being widely
were
reported.
Them,
So my schmuck of the week, I agree with you, Nancy. I needed to go as far away from this election as I could. So I went to Iraq because, of course, we've had nothing to do with that country, where the government is now, thanks to a lot of the Shi'i clerics, looking to drop the age of consent from 18 to 9.
Long overdue. Long overdue. Okay.
Yeah, and apparently, I guess they feel maybe inspired that there's a president-elect who may be aspirational about that, depending on how Project 2025 is interpreted, and not of course too few frat houses that probably feel the same way in this country. So yeah, Iraq, in deciding to go ahead and do that, you're my schmuck of the week. So. All right, we made it through. We're all civil. We're all still alive. And yes, life is good. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Ed Sarpolus. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Huel Perkins. And of course, thank you. And with the last word, always, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.